Good evening. This is the City of Sunbury Services Committee meeting for April 1st, 2026. It is not a joke. Can I please get a roll call?
Mr. Capel?
Here.
Mayor St. John?
Here.
Mrs. Crawford? Here. Mr. Grumney?
Here.
Mr. Gross?
Here.
5 present, we have quorum.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our March 4th meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Crawford. Roll call.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford? Yes. Mayor St. John?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Grumney? 5 yeas, motion approved.
Visitors section. Do we have anybody that'd like to talk to Services Committee? We'll move on then. It's a new and unfinished business. Carla, will this be you on traffic and transportation?
It will be. Would you mind pulling up my PowerPoint presentation, please? I realize the agenda looks very long. However, I believe the presentation portion should go relatively quickly. So bear with me. You want to go to the next?
Is the public able to see this if we're screen sharing like this?
It's my understanding they are. At least one of the residents that I spoke to, they should be able to see it and hear my voice at the same time.
Much better to see the PowerPoint than watch us sit here watching the PowerPoint. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, here are the quick agenda items. Those first 3 large green items, those will be the primary presentation portion. And then of course we get into the latter project updates on the agenda. So we're going to start with the traffic and transportation planning update. As we've gone through previous meetings, I've touched on a few different of these components related to what our existing traffic and transportation planning documents are. I've talked about active transportation, and I've talked briefly about master transportation as well. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time just trying to put it all together for the team. So on the left side of this slide, you'll see a couple of snapshots from the different documents that we have that are existing. Essentially, I'm trying to explain that these items are out there. We are not starting from zero when I talk about trying to develop an active transportation plan or trying to develop and update a master transportation plan. We have been doing this in parts and pieces. So I just wanted to put that together to share some of those items with you. As I believe you've all heard before, the Safety Action Plan, also known as the Safe Streets for All, which we received a grant for, that's one of the planning documents that we can utilize. We have the Thoroughfare Plan developed in 2016. Obviously, likely some updates will be needed there, but that's something that we'll be able to utilize as well. The Comprehensive Plan, again, another document we want to update, but we have a starting point for some of this information. And last but not least, the Sunbury Sidewalk Evaluation. That was done by one of the interns, so someone walked all of the sidewalks in the city and did an evaluation. So with these documents, as we move forward with our plan, I've already mentioned the Active Transportation Plan, which we received grant funding through ODOT for design consultants. I listed them up there. Toole and Carpenter Marty will be assisting the city in developing this plan. So the documents on the left side of the screen are all the information that I will be giving to the consultants so they're aware of some of the things that we've already developed and how we can start building on and updating what we already have. Now, active transportation, just as a reminder, I've got the little picture there, although it's difficult to see. You'll notice there aren't any vehicles there. Active transportation, we're talking about using modes of transportation that are not vehicular. So the documents on the left-hand side, not all of them relate to those modes of transportation, biking, walking, trails, ADA compliance. But we should be able to pull parts and pieces from that in order to develop the active transportation plan. So the other item that we will be able to utilize once we get together this plan is applying for grant funding. So Safe Routes to School is a grant that maybe you guys have heard of, that we could go after in order to support walking and biking to schools within a certain distance. So baked into the active transportation plan, we're planning on having this prioritization so that we can go after Safe Routes to School or other grant funding opportunities. Now, as we try and fold everything into maybe a larger document, the master transportation document, that's another planning item that needs to be more inclusive of active transportation, thoroughfare, and related to our traffic signals around the city. So we'll be able to pull from the documents on the left-hand side some information that we have related to safety and other concerns related to our roadway network as well. Under the master transportation plan, we plan on including an active transportation plan and then also referencing the other documents and tools that we have throughout the city. This is important because as we prioritize projects, we want to make sure that we're consistent across the board. I definitely don't want to work on any of these documents and have them sit on a shelf as something that doesn't actually get executed. By referencing projects in either multiple documents in different categories, that helps with grant and planning for our capital improvement program. So this is just something I wanted to put out there that this year, one of the things that we're working on is starting to develop these plans, starting with the active transportation plan. I did have a scoping meeting with Toole and Carpenter Marty today. So I wasn't able to incorporate anything that we discussed from that meeting, but I can tell you they are planning on having it take approximately 1 year for us to have that plan in our hands. So the other thing I wanted to share from the scoping meeting was that they are interested in having a steering committee. So that's something I'll be working with the team on in order to try and put together a group similar to what we did for the Safe Streets for All grant, a little bit less time consuming. They mentioned 3 or 4 meetings over the course of a year, and having one open house public meeting as well. They're also interested in coming to some of our events that we have and setting up either a tent or some sort of outreach so that they can try to reach out to the public as we have events such as Sizzle, the Memorial, and other. And then finally, the Master Transportation Plan. I am planning on going after some funding there as well under the MORPC Technical Assistance Program. It is due April 24th. I have reached out to MORPC just to vet whether or not that type of project would score well. And they said, absolutely, we should submit. So we'll see if that's something that we can have underway and we can be working on these planning documents on a similar timeline. Any questions related to this?
You may have said this and mine might have been somewhere else, but regarding the active transportation plan, can you give me an idea of like what and maybe you can't, but at the end of the day, the result, what actual types of things that get done with we're talking trails, are we talking safety measures on the trail, dotted, paint on the trails, whatever it might be?
Yeah, yes. So we will identify projects and prioritize them. And part of that will be from gathering the information from the steering committee, staff, and the public engagement that we end up having. So if we are interested in focusing our active transportation on trails and trail connectivity, I do envision us having something geared towards the city of Sunbury that matches up with maybe some other master plans out there, such as MORPC and other trail, greenway trails, some of those other master plans that surround our community. So yes, but what we would do is we would find what the projects are and try and prioritize it. It could be adding share the road paint.
Okay.
Some of those safety improvements. It could be adding sidewalks it could be as, I don't want to say simple, but it could be just a matter of making sure that every, sidewalk in the city is ADA compliant, which is an important. So prioritizing these items under active transportation, that will be the end goal. And then in that matrix, after we have the priorities, it will also include grants that we will be able to go after, which is one of the deliverables we had for the Safe Streets for All as well.
Thank you for the examples. I appreciate it.
Sure.
You said they gave you a year
Mhm.
timeline for the plan. Does that include then creating the steering committee and getting that input?
Yes, yes. So I did ask them if they needed any sort of resolution or council action, and they said, because we have already been awarded in our application, it's not something that they need from us, so they are planning on getting a finalized scope from us. The payments go directly through ODOT, through the award, so it's not something that we have to manage through our finance department. Definitely a nice perk and benefit, but will allow us to get started, hopefully by the end of the month. But we'll see how quickly I can get a steering committee together. So if you're interested, please call me or email.
That sounds like the scope's a little more narrow than Safe Streets for All was, so maybe a little more concise getting through it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. On to public outreach.
On to the next. Public outreach. I know on the agenda, this list might look a little bit daunting. I mostly just wanted to list out some of the examples for public outreach and engagement that we will be pursuing in the near future. And I just wanted to talk through some of the efforts that we're trying to improve on the projects that we have construction throughout the city, but also just to make you guys aware, if you are asked about a project out in the field, where they might be able to find this information. I'm always trying to improve frequently asked questions and the public engagement part of this to help residents get comfortable with construction that's coming their way. So this first slide, I've got frequently asked questions. I also handed out a one-pager of an example of it. It's not the same one that I have shown here. I believe I shared the one for South Vernon Street reconstruction. And so over the years, questions that typically come up for street work that are highly impactful to residents, questions such as, are you going to impact my sprinkler system? Would I need to move my flowers? Will they be impacted? Will I be out of my driveway and for how long? These are very common questions when you know there's going to be road work or other types of construction in your area. So developing these frequently asked questions and hoping to get ahead of this helps the city plan, but also helps the residents. At this point, the example that I gave you, this South Vernon Street fact sheet hasn't been distributed to residents. I am waiting to get a contractor on board. So many of the questions that are asked are time dependent. They want to know when they're going to be there and the exact means and methods. So essentially when their driveway is going to be impacted. And then they'll start asking these questions. So the example that I gave you is something that we have a bid out for bid opening on this project related to street improvement plan. And once we have a contractor on board, we'll get a schedule and we'll be able to start sharing this information. On the left-hand side, I listed some of the other frequently asked question projects that I anticipate having either a 1 or 2 page document to hand out to residents that are going to be impacted. The Cheshire Ditch Sewer Rehab Project is another one that residents sometimes feel like they're not getting a ton of questions answered when the lining is being done. So handing out frequently asked questions can help them with some of the minor items, such as, can I flush my toilet while the work is being done? How much notification will you give me? What does the restoration look like? who do I contact if I have to have access to water? So there are a lot of questions that we can provide, and then the community can reach out and let us know if they have questions. With that project happening next week, once I have the date that they're planning on starting, I'm hoping to go out there and pass out the notifications or get some help passing out notifications early next week. I mentioned the Little Walnut Creek Phase 2A. I won't have frequently asked questions for that sewer extension project, but I am planning on having a plan set and talking directly to one of the residents that is highly impacted and will need some temporary right away. So that's some of the outreach that we'll do as part of that project. Although I do anticipate in the future for phases 2B and phase 3, we'll probably need to develop some frequently asked questions because it'll start impacting many more people. And then the East Granville Street Widening Project. On the right-hand side, that's the example that I have there. I know you probably can't read it. During the public engagement that we had during the design phase of the initial design phase where we were trying to come up with the configurations that we wanted, shared use path, no shared use path. We did have the frequently asked questions developed at this time. One of the modifications that we want to include in these frequently asked questions as we move forward is, what is going to be the traffic impacts? What are the anticipated routes that vehicles will need to take? I do have a slide that's dedicated to that item coming up shortly. Let's go ahead and go to the next. All right, traffic calming. This is another big one that we want to do some public outreach on. Right now, in order for a contractor to install paint, as long as they have the dimensions and an approximate quantity, whether or not we adjust some of these traffic calming elements, there's some time in order to vet those items. So on the two pictures on the left-hand side, those are just showing the North Miller and the West Granville Street traffic calming. I believe it was brought up, giving some of the businesses on West Granville a heads up that we are planning on putting dedicated parking in and having some narrowing with paint was recommended. And then also we could collect their feedback as well.
So it's Dr. Anthony's office there, the post office that you can see. Ohashi would be on the north, and then Mr. Barry Bennett. If anybody could get a hold of him, just let him know. His is right on the right side.
Oh, yep. I can give you your own plan set whenever you're ready, Mr. Bennett.
I like it.
And we have buy-in. That's great.
And then the one in the middle, that's basically the school driveway on the very top. As you would be heading south, it kind of narrows as you're getting into North Miller Drive. And then you added the turn lane there. Is that a concept that you see throughout, like with the other streets? I forget what it is.
Yep, the four-way intersections, we have left turn lanes in order to narrow those exterior ones. And then you can also see the pinch point leading in that chicane, if you will.
Thanks.
We've talked a little bit about it. You guys are aware we are doing some lane configurations between Wendy's and McDonald's there. So certainly some communication with those business owners, the community and the schools, really going to be a critical area here. And then I know I've mentioned it before, but I'm hoping Jake, our public works team, can get out there and set up some of the codes to at least give a feel before school gets out on what the impacts for the traffic calming could result in.
The work's expected to happen this summer.
This summer. So in the plan set, we have requested that the traffic calming is complete before summer. So that's something that we can work with the contractor on. But I do imagine that it doesn't get done before school gets out. We'll have to vet it and do the communication.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Question, and part of this, is any part of this, and I've brought this before, so sorry for being redundant, but going across the Kroger parking lot into where Jersey Mike's is, going straight, that is, I mean, I've done it, but it's a death trap. You're just hoping that is there anything that can be done, like right turn only out of there, or I'm not sure.
Which side, John?
So if you're going from the Kroger parking lot
Yeah.
crossing, Miller,
Yeah.
into where like Jersey Mike's is.
Yeah.
If you go straight, there's there's a left and a right.
I thought it was just one lane went right.
Yeah, I didn't think yours.
I saw it straight there.
You're not people do it all the
There's no
time.
straight
There's no
line there.
I know, and I've illegally done it, but I'm just saying, I see
I
people
think
do it
I
all
do.
the time too. So even though it's painted that way, and people coming the other way going to the Kroger parking lot, they just go straight right across, so. You know, even though I know the arrows are painted that way, but people probably say, I think, well, how am I supposed to get over there? And they're not, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have it included as
Yeah.
part of this project,
Yeah.
but certainly as we do improvements in the area, if that's another location we want to look at and maybe make some adjustments, really all of the South Miller area is something that we can look at. It was also mentioned on, I'm gonna say this wrong, Burr Street. That's also extremely wide. People get going very fast there. Not really, but maybe some paint could help. The library's right there. And so as we kind of vet some of these options, we can go back and add improvements. I do my grocery shopping at Kroger, and I'm very careful when I'm pulling in and out. And I have never gone from Jersey Mike's to Kroger and Kroger to Jersey Mike's.
You're not
That's
supposed to.
the lanes of traffic. I do not recommend it.
It's scary.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so that I'm clear, so the outreach would be targeted towards people impacted, but also referenced on the webpage so that we could
Yes.
align people with it. Okay.
Yeah, we can do some social media outreach as well. It will be geared more towards the direct impact of adjacent properties. We also have had some outreach from residents in some of the neighborhoods on North Miller, and we already have some of those names. So we are planning on making sure they have this plan so that they realize that this is step one. This is a phased approach. This isn't the final solution necessarily. Could we eventually have a RFB? I know that school buses stop along North Miller. Could we have other layers of safety? Do we want to put a median in? Do we want actual curbs? These are all things when you're looking at doing traffic calming, having a phased approach to vet what they are is a great way to move forward. Especially, it's also very efficient when it comes to the financing part. That way, if you know you don't like the chicane, thank goodness you didn't put a curb in there first. Cones will work in order to get a feel for it. And if we need to have more enforcement because the paint is being driven over, that's something that we can move forward with.
The design work is done for the traffic calming.
Yes.
Can we see that at some point? Can you just point us to the design? Maybe we've covered it. I just don't recall.
So I didn't share it with the services group. I did share it with the traffic working group, which happened to be the same day of the state of the city. So I will send it again because it may have been missed. But yes, I will share those documents. And anytime anyone has feedback or if there's someone you're concerned I don't have their contact information for that would like to know about this other than Mr. Bennett, just let me know.
Yeah, and maybe if I could add, I mean, Carla and I had talked about that a little bit. I know when we did the traffic calming on Sunbury Meadows Drive, I know you did go out and kind of walk it just to kind of see, and that is an opportunity. Maybe Tim, you might even want to go out on a walk with Carla. It's not too late to make an adjustment if we feel like we need to make an
I
adjustment.
think we only made a couple minor ones. It
Yeah.
was like a fire hydrant was here or a pedestrian
Yeah.
crossing sign was missing or something like that. Where it's like, you know, when you get out there, you're like, oh, okay, you know, stall by stall or chicane by chicane, it's just helpful.
Yeah, it'll make more sense when you walk it. The engineers that are working on this, they have the survey information, so somebody went out there, but it's usually not the person putting the paint to pen. Although many of us do use Google Street View in order to see the most recent information.
More silly question. Our Miller Drive, the traffic calming and the lane realignment between Wendy's and McDonald's, is that scoped in the same book of work?
Yes.
Okay. And then my follow-up to that is, I know that whole intersection is triggered by what they call sonar, radar,
Yes.
something.
Yep, so we'll have to look at the detection.
Okay.
Yes, it's not necessarily included in this, but I'll see what we can do in-house with our staff. But if there's something that needs to be done in order to make that paint configuration work, we'll make sure to line it up.
There's technicians, we have somebody like adjust the sensor or
Yes.
dial it in.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And then just for the Cherry Street and Morning Street, our favorite mountable curb, future mountable curb location, the residents on that corner highly impacted by the J.R. Smith Park construction, and they'll probably see this as the same project, but it's not. So I want to communicate to them and make sure they're aware that they'll have some sidewalk being installed as part of the J.R. Smith Park project. We have OPWC funding, so we have to track and use our own contractor, most likely, in order to put in a portion of it. So there will be multiple crews out there. So at least on that corner for those heavily impacted residents, we'll do some outreach. They cannot do the construction at this intersection until after July 1st. That is also in the plans because OPWC funding requires that you can't put a shovel in the ground for this funding year until July 1st. So that's another thing we're clearly making our future contractor aware of. All right, go ahead and go to the next. All right, and I mentioned that we had a dedicated slide to talk a little bit more about the East Granville Street widening project and some of the maintenance of traffic, local versus truck considerations. So one of the items that we wanted to get some early buy-in from ODOT and the county was the maintenance of traffic as it relates to trucks. So in order to determine whether or not there would be ODOT permission for us to close down the project, we had to put together a proposed detour plan and some other documentation for a justification for this routing. So the images you see here are specifically targeted for truck traffic. Certainly residents that are trying to get from A to B would be encouraged to take this route as well. But one of the things we'll have to look at are some of the local options for how traffic gets around. Certainly the people that live in this community will likely know their own route and figure it out. But one of the critical items will be to make sure a truck doesn't get to the point of, let's call it no return, where it would basically stop traffic, need to figure out a way to turn around.
Literally saw this on the news tonight. What
Did you?
happened with the 315 shutdown? Semis, like there's signage for 2.5 miles. And I know this is brand new,
Yeah.
but the semi is like all the way up against the sign. I mean, and the news reporter standing on the road right next to the semi, like even, amongst all the notifications that you can give, there's a semi truck that's all the way in there, and then you got to figure out how to back it out, and it's a mess.
It's a nightmare. We definitely need to try our best to communicate this as early as possible to get the message out. So that goes along with the public engagement as well, and even as simple as trying to make sure that the detour is picked up properly, and did the truck driver get routed a certain direction and not rerouted, and so they decided to keep going? Possibly. So trying to get some of those early communication items in, something that we're interested in doing. The local traffic. I do not have a specified route for local traffic. We talked about doing Walnut Street. So essentially going straight on Cherry Street instead of taking the 90-degree bend past J.R. Smith Park to Walnut Street and then southbound. And then Walnut Street would drop you south of the project by Letts Avenue. So that is one of the detour considerations for vehicles that are trying to navigate within our city. How we communicate local versus truck traffic, definitely something we've got a little bit of time to get a handle on, but something we'll want to have vetted and communicate to the public.
What would the point of no return be for trucks for this project? Because I imagine it's not Walnut Street. So would it be Columbus Street or something like that as they're coming in if they miss the signage?
So we're a little bit less concerned about people missing the State Route 3 and 36 northern route. So when you are coming eastbound, we believe we'll be able to communicate that effectively, and vehicles will be able to take that route. I'm a little bit more concerned about westbound. The point of no return being 605. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you've got to figure out a way around. So even if we had 2 miles of reminders that vehicles need to follow the detour, which has been approved by ODOT, that doesn't mean that they won't see how far they can get, and then where are they trying to turn around, in whose driveway. There are definitely some challenges to the detouring.
Yeah, I would say that we've used this route as the detour when the 4th of July parade's going on. So we've tried to signal to truckers to turn up 605 and get around. And yeah, we always have trucks that go through it and end up right down here waiting for the parade to end. So yeah, I agree with Carla. I think we're more likely to end up with problems that way than maybe the other way. Not to say that there wouldn't be challenges, but there's sort of a quick fix if you're coming eastbound versus westbound.
All right, so the other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is the benefits of having a full closure versus trying to maintain maybe one lane of traffic during construction, which this is a state route. ODOT could have told us absolutely not. You need to figure out a way to at least maintain traffic in one direction. But because of the safety that would be associated with closing down the site in order to accelerate the construction, those were some of the benefits that led to the approval for a full closure. So the closure timeline, I've got at the bottom my last little bullet point there, closure 12 to 18 months. If we needed to maintain traffic in each direction, it's anticipated that it would add approximately 6 months to construction. The idea is this widening project is supposed to be under construction in the late summer of 2027. So if you look at a full year from there, you're in the middle of summer. Trying to get it closed out and the road open by the end of the year, that's the goal. What would be considered 2 construction season, but more like 1.5. And that can happen with the full closure. If they need to maintain traffic, it's anticipated that that timeline may be longer. I do not have the exact timeline, and when we have a contractor on board, they will look very critically if they need to maintain traffic at what their expectations are. And typically there's a cost associated with it. The exact cost, also an unknown. Rule of thumb, 5 to 10% of the construction estimate. So if this is 7 to 7.5 million in construction, we're looking at least $250,000 to as much as $700,000 in savings if we can close down the road. As I talked through it with our consulting team, they explained it really depends on the bidders. This project has some complicated elements with the retaining walls. So whether or not we see 5% or less of savings is really going to be bidder to bidder. It depends on how the contractor is going to see the benefit. But most contractors would see a road closure as a benefit, especially for safety and their ability to accelerate construction.
What type of signage is available aside from detour signs, when you talked about not the trucks, but regular traffic going up Cherry to Walnut. My concerns are that, one, you're now going through a neighborhood and these are narrow roads, no sidewalks. Children oftentimes outside playing, but Walnut in particular, once you turn on Walnut,
Yes.
it's very narrow.
Very
You're
narrow.
not sure two cars can go down there. Is there anything that can be done to kind of alert and let people know, hey?
Slow down. And if we need to look at another route through the city, that is something that we can consider. The signage would essentially be for local traffic only, and we could certainly include signage to indicate that they need to slow down. With the road being narrow, that's a definite concern. If you guys drive it and you're not used to seeing a traffic or very rarely needing to pull off to the side, that's something that we'll need to consider. And then certainly if it is heavily traveled for approximately 2 years, we would need to look at accelerating some maintenance on that street as well, which could be any of the detour routes within the city. I can see you guys are really excited about the Granville Street. It'll be great when it's done. Completely worth it. But 2 years, well, a year and a half, potentially of heavy construction in that area, we're going to feel it.
Personally, I am very excited.
Yeah.
But that was already my like detour out of the neighborhood. I don't really want everybody there, so.
Seafood is out.
I completely understand. I'll talk to our consulting team about whether or not there are other routes. But if anybody has suggestions that they feel local traffic could utilize, I mean, routing around the square is not really something I'd like to do either. So it's something that we can look at a little bit closer. I think the Walnut Street example for local traffic is one of the shortest and most direct, like simplest routes for people to utilize. Now, is it the safest? And that's definitely a consideration that we will need to make. All right.
Loader purchase.
Yeah, so let me just take this one if I could quickly. What I wanted to do, or Jake had asked me to do, is he would like to alter his capital improvement plan to replace 3 items that have been approved in the plan: a pickup truck, a compact trailer, and a John Deere sidewalk brush, which totals roughly, or it's been budgeted for $90,000 to replace that with an $88,000 skid steer, track steer. I think a copy of that is in the packet. He thinks it adds more versatility to the team and what they need. He particularly likes that it gives them an opportunity to put some matting out in the cemetery before they start digging for burials. There's a lot of damage to the turf as they're sort of navigating to and from the burial sites. So this is the type of machine that would be able to help them do that with forks and some additional matting. Because this is something that's been approved in the city's budget, this would be a budget revision. And so we come back to you with a budget revision. I just wanted you to know that that may be one of the things the next time Dana and I put together a budget revision, that this is one of the things we'd be looking for. So that's just generally a heads up to swap out some approved equipment for this type of piece of equipment. Again, coming back to you in the form of a budget revision later on. Don't need a decision now, but if you have any initial thoughts, we certainly welcome those.
I feel like if Jake says that this is what they need, then that's all I need to know.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you.
Look out, I took the mic, guys. So I know I don't normally have samples, show and tell for the services committees, but I know how much you enjoy seeing the example of the material. This is an unused sanitary sewer pipe. That is an excellent question. We always should be your first.
This is an health test.
Yeah, so this is an example of a CIPP pipe liner. So a cured in place pipe liner. So the Cheshire Ditch Lining Project will be utilizing this technology. Lining technology has been around and heavily used in the US since the 90s. It started maybe in the 80s, but really picked up steam in the 90s. So this process involves having a liner that is either fiberglass, which the ones that we use today typically are not, or a felt material that is, they call it impregnated with resin. And it's inverse. So when you have this flat liner, the outside of it is actually going to end up being the inside as they invert the material, shoot hot air through it, and they're able to pull the liner through. The chemical process then cures the pipe. It typically takes at least 4 hours for this material to cure. This is considered a trenchless technology. So think of it as no dig. That's the goal. Sanitary sewer pipes are typically 10 feet deep, give or take. That type of pipe replacement is very intrusive and expensive, which is one of the reasons why pipelining is typically done for most communities if they're able to use this rehab process. So if you guys are interested in seeing the process, I'm happy to let you know when Performance Pipeline will be at Cheshire Ditch. Again, they are planning on doing the lining starting at the end of next week, which I believe they'll probably be doing it early the following week as well. But if you guys are interested in seeing the process, it is cool. Am I allowed to say that? At least I find it very interesting. So I did want to share this with you, or it was not in a sewer. If anybody else wants to take a look at it, I'm happy to share with the crowd. Are there any questions about sewer lining? Great. So that was one of the updates for projects. You tell me what's next on the list, or go to the next one. I can finish up a brief update for these items. Is Columbus Street next?
Yeah, the parking lot.
Yep, so Columbus Street, you guys have seen the mulch is out, some of the plantings. There's still significant mulch work and some landscaping that needs to be completed, but it's looking nice out there. We talked about doing some sort of formal ribbon cutting once it gets cleaned up, which I believe we can probably have finalized in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Just looking for any sort of guidance on the timeline, but I'm also happy to ask in an email or at council, depending upon who you'd like to be there.
When is grass installed? Maybe I missed that.
So in the next 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be installed. So once they have the seeding, you'd be interested in doing a ribbon cutting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As soon as I get that information, I will see if we can schedule it.
Thank you.
They started seeing it.
Yes.
Sean was looking, sorry, Mr. Stainer was looking out his window. He saw they were putting grass in today. I believe they had a lot of mulch to do. I'll tighten up the timeline.
Okay, excellent.
The street improvement program, the bid opening is on April 22nd at the municipal building at 2 p.m. And no update on the wastewater treatment plant expansion. We're still on schedule. J.R. Smith Park, they are currently working on the demo. We have had our public works supervisor out as well to help coordinate some of the utilities in the area and address at least one wet spot at J.R. Smith Park that we want to make sure we have a solution for. But right now they are pushing through in order to do some of the mass excavation ahead of the construction. We shared with the Parks Committee that next month we're hopeful to share a little bit more detail about the scheduling of the different components within the park. And that's it. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I definitely wanted to thank you, Carla. Thank you. I I feel like the new format that you've taken with the agenda for the services meeting helps us kind of get through the massive information a little bit quicker and hit some of the repetitive points quicker on the end. So I really appreciate how this is all coming together. Services meetings are drinking from a fire hose sometimes, at least that's what it feels like. So I appreciate being able to kind of hit the highlights and get through it quickly. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you see the future action items that could be potential presentation items and you have any feedback or extra projects you'd like me to add, I'm always looking for that input. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Carl.
Do we have anything else from the committee tonight? Questions? Okay. Then I am going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Gose. Roll call.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Gose,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.